Hello everybody, welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Sitch.
And my name is James.
James.
That's
I started
me.
the pod with a message I received yesterday from a friend of the show and one of our patrons, Clayton.
Hello, Clayton.
Clayton, I don't even know what his handle is anymore because he changed it. It used to be Ray Gooner. It's something FPL Gooner. Anyway, Clayton.
No.
And his message to me yesterday was...
Go on.
Have any of your pods this week covered wildcard discussions? I'm about to have a lie down by the pool and I'm confused as fuck on what to do. My reply to him was, tomorrow, mate.
Clates AFC is his handle.
Clates AFC. There you
the
go.
AFC obviously stands for Arsenal, so hopefully that he's somewhere where he hasn't got reception, can't get access to the podcast and doesn't hear this. Sod him.
So in answer to his question, have any of your pods covered wildcard? And he needs to lie by the pool and listen. Should we do a pod on wildcard?
Yeah, since I'm on it, yeah, why not?
Okay.
You're not.
I am not on wildcard.
I feel like this is the first time in a while you and I haven't wildcard at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, quite possibly. The FPL gods have looked down upon me quite kindly in terms of the postponements this weekend and where my squad was at. Prior to game week 7, I'd already made the decision to sell Kulusevski because you had the away game at Man City and downgrade him to Leon Bailey to free me up some money. And we knew at the time then that the Brighton Palace game was going to be off, and so I had to move on Sanchez because I had no goalkeeper at the time. So I made that move last week, and obviously now we know, but Kulusevski, obviously no one played, but Bailey's got a game this week. And my plan with the money that I made from that transfer was to move from Sanchez to Fabianski and to move from Archer to Mitrovic. And as it's rolled out, despite the postponements, despite the cancellations this week, and despite everything, they're almost exactly the moves I made. The only difference was instead of Fabianski, I went to Pope.
You did this ahead of Rises, I'm taking?
Yes, yeah. I did this on Wednesday night, when it looked like Archer was going down and Pope was going up. Had Pope been 5.2 and Fabianski been 5, I might have thought differently, but there was only 0.1 difference between them. So I decided to go with Pope. Also driven by the fact that a lot of people being on wildcard have double defensive Newcastle. I thought if I should have at least one to kind of cover me off. I ended up sticking to the plan. It's rolled out nicely for me. I have 11 players this week and a first sub, and I haven't had to use a chip or take a hit. And I'm quite happy with my team, really, going into the weekend. I've got Treble City, I've got Haaland, Perisic.
Can you just read that team out?
My team this week. So I've Pope in goal, back 3, Perisic, Cancelo, Nico Williams. A midfield 4, Andreas, Bailey, Martinelli, De Bruyne. And a front 3 of Mitrovic, Jesus, and Haaland captain. I've put the vice on Mitrovic. My bench is Ward, Patterson, and then I've got Trent and Luis Diaz still there, obviously as sub. So it looks a little light in that I'm playing Nico Williams and Bailey and Archer. But I don't think the home tie against Southampton's too bad for Bailey. I might have played him anyway ahead of maybe Nico Williams or something like that. Pereira, Nottingham Forest. It's not a bad tie. And you could argue the same vice versa for Nico Williams. So to not have to use a hit and not take a hit and use any chips, I'm quite comfortable with that. And the advantage that I have, potential advantage, I should say, because we don't know if it's going to play out, is I've got 2 Liverpool sitting there, and a lot of people that are on wildcard right now are moving away from Liverpool completely. And as much as they're not in the best form, it's an advantage. So many pieces of content that I've heard where people are like, leave yourself enough money to get them back, or have that as a contingency because you're going to want them back. They're there for me right now. So I haven't had to use the wildcard, and I'm quite happy with it going into this week.
So when do you use it?
That was going to be my next point. Now, game week 12, I have as it stands right now, I have Triple City, double Arsenal. So 5 players that are not going to play in that midweek. my next thought, once we get through this weekend, is figuring out how I'm going to manoeuvre to a situation then that I'm comfortable with. Because the problem with the likes of Martinelli and Haaland is that I've got so much value in them that they've built up that I don't want to move off them. So then does that mean De Bruyne and Cancelo are expendable and Jesus? And it might well be that like Jesus down to even an Isak or a Skamaka gives me money to turn De Bruyne into Salah, and then I'm kind of sort of covered off. So I've got plenty of options around there, and I haven't got so much value in the likes of De Bruyne and Cancelo, a little bit in Cancelo, but De Bruyne that I can move off him.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with the Arsenal City assets, there will be people like you who've got, say, 5 at the moment. You people out there who've got 6 at the moment with, say, a Saliba on top of Jesus and Martinelli and, say, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland, or another City alternative. What's really important, I think, to note is after the blank in 12, where their game is postponed, Arsenal go to Southampton, then have Nottingham Forest at home. So if you get rid, you might want it straight back with those 2 fixtures afterwards. And Manchester City go straight into Brighton at home, and their last 4 fixtures before the World Cup are great. Brighton at home, Leicester away, Fulham at home, Brentford at home. So you've got 3 home games and Leicester away.
Yep.
So if you come off, you might want them straight back. And obviously, of course, as well, Liverpool come into a better fixture swing at that period as well. I think, Suj, if I was you, I would probably be looking to dead end my team into 12 and wildcard in 13. Mm-hmm. So City have got Liverpool as well the week before in 11. So can you come off Cancelo, De Bruyne there for Liverpool away, obviously Arsenal blank, wildcard and back in if that's what you want to do. Same with maybe the Arsenal guys and stuff as well. Arsenal in 11 have Leeds away, which is also following on from fixtures against Liverpool, Tottenham.
Yep.
So if you wanted to move on with Jesus, for example, I think that's where I'd be aiming for you. And I think that's kind of where we've got roughly with wildcards at the moment. You've got kind of 3 different ideas at play. One's not an idea, it's gone. But one is obviously lots of people have already wildcarded. You've now got a select group of people who are either wildcarding now or next week. One certain benefit in terms of wildcarding for next week is there is going to be so many price rises tonight and tomorrow, I think. So if you are wildcarding in 9, utilise that, activate the chip
6:35 today
after the deadline tonight. You know, once Forest Fulham starts, Villa Southampton starts, activate it. Get these players into your squad that are going to go up in value. Even if you don't necessarily want them on that wild card, you might get 0.2 out of them, nick the 0.1 profit, move it on to something else. And then I think the third course is you've got people doing that, which is either going to be wildcard 12 to get directly out of the problem, or go into 12 with the problem, wildcard straight afterwards. Yep. I prefer the wildcard straight afterwards, personally. And that's roughly where you've got 3 different routes are on at the moment. I am on wildcard. Those who'd listened last week before, obviously, we lost the Queen and knew that I'd made a decision last week that I was going to wildcard going into this week anyway. The strategy idea was to go heavily against my 2 Arsenal players and my 3 Liverpool players and swing against the crowd, basically. Now, what's happened is, because a lot of people have now been forced into this wild card, for many planned, for many unplanned, I'm now sitting on a team which is going to look quite like the new template, I think, with a few differentials, certainly to start with, but certainly what will feel more like a Twitter template. My initial reaction to that is, I've now got similar teams to everybody else again, but it is small sample. You look on Twitter, it's not representative of the whole game. This is still going to be a small number, so it's still quite differential. And the fact that my team is going to look quite similar to a lot of teams I'm seeing on Twitter doesn't necessarily mean that my thinking's in the wrong place. It means my thinking's quite similar to a lot of people. But I'm not sure too many will have the exact wild card that I've got.
No, I mean, there's always 1 or 2 different, and then also different people have built up different value.
If you want to copy it, by all means copy it. Let me tell you that there are better FPL experts out there to copy than me, because I am not an expert.
Go on then.
I'm a fixture head. So I think, firstly, it's worth saying, why was I going to wild card in the first place? Well, I think it was attacking against Liverpool's fixtures. Liverpool were obviously meant to play Chelsea this coming weekend. Trent, Robertson, Luis Diaz. The idea was to come off all. Martinelli and Jesus, in theory, had worse fixtures after this coming weekend against Brentford, with Tottenham, Liverpool, City originally all to come in forthcoming weeks. The idea would be to come off those 2 Arsenal players a week early, gamble against them against Brentford this weekend. You also have Reece James, obviously got no fixture. Robert Sanchez was my goalkeeper, which instantly becomes a problem when you go, oh, well, I'll play my sub-goalkeeper. Oh, it's Danny Ward. I have the treble City, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland. I have Andreas Pereira. I had Josh De Silva, who I don't think starts at the moment while Norgard's out. Ryan Sessegnon, who we think might start this weekend with Perisic, ironically. If you think back a couple of weeks ago, I was on both. And Cameron Archer, who I dropped in value again last night. I've made 9 changes in total to my team. In goal, in fact, let me take you through firstly the players I've kept. So Ward survives. He survives as the backup goalkeeper. I think, look, he is the cheapest playing available goalkeeper, and it is worth saying, all right, Tottenham away this weekend's not a brilliant fixture, but actually Leicester do then come into some good fixtures if I suddenly had the requirement that I've got to use him. Not that we'd ever expect anything off him, but I think that's fine as a second choice. Brendan Rodgers' comments this week would suggest that Ward is going to stay in goal rather than Daniel Weaverson. The treble City stay for me. So that's Cancelo, De Bruyne, and Haaland. I think Cancelo and Haaland probably don't need too much explanation. Kevin De Bruyne probably does need a little bit more explanation. So obviously toyed with the idea of going Sonny at a similar price, even looking at it as a 1-week punt. The reality is I don't want to look at Son at the moment after this week, going into Arsenal away, Brighton away, and Manchester United away in 3 of the next 4. Though ironically, game week 11, I may look at him again when Tottenham are at home to Everton, because it's certainly the sort of week you can look at alternative captaincies. I know many are looking at De Bruyne versus Kane at the moment for similar value, and you've got certain situations where you're going sort of like De Bruyne and a forward at, say, 7.5, or you're going Kane and a midfielder at that sort of value. My take again is I'd rather look at De Bruyne next week than Kane going into those Arsenal-Brighton games. KDB at home to Manchester United and Southampton, 2 home games, absolutely fine. I think that still offers me the best captaincy alternative should I feel at some point that Haaland's not going to play in the upcoming games. And I know there's people out there listening who are going Kane now and going to captain him this week. That's absolutely fine. On the face of it, this 1 week, yes, Kane over De Bruyne. I'm in agreement. For the forthcoming weeks, I'm not. And even then, am I that bothered looking at United and Liverpool in forthcoming games for KDB when what do I always call him, Suj?
Who, KDB?
Yeah.
Mr. Reliable.
Big game, Kev. Home to Man United.
Is that a big game?
What? Of course it is. Of course it is.
They're not rivals anymore.
Yes, they are. The Manchester derby is a big game. As is
local
Liverpool
rivals.
away.
I don't think on the pitch there's a.
He scored in both of those fixtures last year as well, and obviously this week he has got Wolves, and I seem to remember he tore it up a little bit there last year. I'm sure that's not going to happen again. That's not the influence on the decision. The decision is I know I need to make future moves with what I've got, and therefore would rather have KDB already sitting there.
Haaland makes KDB more interesting for me.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I just think I look at it and I'm like, Haaland's going to score 20 goals and KDB's going to assist half of them, so it's fine for me. Like, if I like it that they've got Haaland there as a striker and a focal point now. So for some people, it was like having Haaland there makes KDB less attractive because KDB was started the season at what 12, didn't he? Or 12 and a half. 12 he was, and Haaland was cheaper at 11 and a half. And it was like, why would you buy KDB when you can get a Haaland? It's like having both. It's like having Kane and Son. It's like having Haaland and KDB.
Right now, for many of us, we don't feel we need that captaincy alternative.
No, but
if I suddenly did,
he's still scoring points.
If I suddenly did, with the fixtures that are coming up for the likes of Tottenham, Arsenal and Liverpool, I'd still feel like I'd rather be on KDB in most of these. Game week 11 is the one that I look at and I really think, yeah, I could look at... What I might look at as an idea is going De Bruyne to Son in 11 for Tottenham at home to Everton. Possibly even chaining that into another player in 12 and then going back to KDB in 13.
Okay.
Or going Son at Manchester United as well, which is fine if I have alternative problems. then back to KDB in 13. That's roughly where I'm at as a kind of idea of what I want to do. Of course, it could be that Son's in great form by then, and I just... Listen, this team, I look at it, the team I've picked, and I think I could just leave that dead for a few weeks. No doubt this time in 2 weeks I'm going to feel different about something. There will be mistakes in here for sure. Gabriel Martinelli stays. The reason Gabriel Martinelli stays is part on alternative selections and finding it really unjustifiable to pick someone else at his value at the moment. There is also the thing that's nagging at me that knows that tonight he's highly likely to go up in price again, up to 6.6. And if I sell right now, I'm selling at 6.2.
Wow.
And psychologically, that just feels quite damaging that I'm 0.4 off. We've got Brentford away. They have an excellent record at home to Tottenham historically, which is the game week 9 fixture. Potentially playing against Trent in game week 10. When you start isolating, you think, that's all right, the way Trent's playing at the moment. Game week 11's at Leeds. Then there's the blank, a little bit what you said, the value built up in him though. I just found it, and I spoke about this last couple of weeks. I always said he would be hard to sell. Much harder to sell than Gabriel Jesus. So at the moment, he's staying. The other player that stays is Andreas Pereira. I think that's fairly self-explanatory, as discussed with Dara on the FanView podcast yesterday. He just almost feels like ideal first substitute. Ironically, for me, in a lot of coming weeks, he won't even get as high up as first substitute. And I know a lot of people are going to play him this week. And that's absolutely fine, considering the condition a lot of teams will be in. So, the new players in are, to go with Danny Ward in goal, is Nick Pope. I think that's, again, popular, fairly self-explanatory at the moment, high-scoring goalkeeper in the game. I've got them top of my fixture ticker over the next 5 weeks, despite a trip to Old Trafford in game week 11. I think Pope, I've not really debated anyone else for that position at the moment, other than Nick Pope. To go with him, teammate Kieran Trippier, who, do you know, hasn't had an FPL assist yet since he joined Newcastle, Suj?
Oh, wow.
I know, that's a bit of a mad stat, isn't it?
Sheets.
It's all goals and clean sheets and potential bonus in terms of chance creation. Those assists will come, not necessarily in the immediate, but they will come. Again, similar reasoning. I've obviously got up zero. I'm going to by the end of tonight, be up 0.2 on him as well. With trips, I'm looking at the 3 games, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brentford, and then potentially make a decision on him ahead of the trip to Old Trafford. Like, do I want to go to Old Trafford with double Newcastle defence in 11? Do I want to take double Newcastle defence to White Hart Lane in 13? I think with Pope, you know that there's a real potential to haul in those games should Newcastle keep a clean sheet. But in reality, Manchester United away and Tottenham away are games that you wouldn't necessarily expect it. That said, I am potentially going to be in a position where I can bench trips in a couple of these more difficult fixtures in 11 and 13. So in 11, with what I've got currently, I will have alternatives where I could bench him. And game week 13, I would possibly be in a little bit more of a difficult situation at Tottenham. But I'm presumably going to have made some changes to my squad by then, right? Mm-hmm. Looking as it stands now, he probably would be in my bust team for 11 and 13. By the way, if people are thinking, how have you looked at that already? Highly recommend our friend Pete's FPL.team website. So trips is judged on 3 games, and then I'll reassess. Ivan Perisic is in. And I've not been certain on this at all. It looks like, from Antonio Conte's comments yesterday, that Perisic and Sessegnon might both start tomorrow. And the suggestion from Conte's comments were that Perisic could well play on the right-hand side. So him at right wing-back, Sessegnon at left wing-back. I would say, by the way, that he could do that the other way round. Ryan Sessegnon is capable of playing right wing-back as well, and Conte has used that on occasion late in games last season. No thoughts to go with Ryan Sessegnon, despite the fact he was originally in my team. I know that is definitely a problem waiting to happen.
You've named 8 players so far. Apart from Trippier, you've named 9 players, but 8 of your 9 are in my squad at the moment.
This doesn't surprise me. I had bigger problems than you, mate. There are a few names coming up that you don't have.
Now I think it will diverge.
So Perisic, He's in at the moment. It's worth saying I've got 0.3 in the bank with the team that I've got. Now, currently, I'm 0.4 away from Reece James, who people are selling now. Now, with no fixture this weekend, it might be that this time next week I'm sitting with a 0.3 gap. I might be able to make that move should I want to, but I don't think I'll be desperate to. But currently, I'd have Perisic bust on the bench against Arsenal in game week 9 and have an alternative plan. That alternative would be Emerson Palmieri of West Ham United, who next week, Serge, you have Wolves at home, who got Diego Costa now, Serge, shit yourself. The biggest problem with Emerson, I think I've decided he's the best one for me now in terms of wild card with the Williams, the Patterson, the players at this value. I think Patterson could be really interesting for the last stretch because I have Everton top my ticker last 4 before Unlimited, by the way. But not at the moment. I don't see where I'd use him. The issue with Emerson, the only reason I can really talk myself out of not having him, considering you said go and get him as well, Serge, as we discussed on Tottenham on Patreon earlier this week, is the game week 12 fixture. The fixture when I need him most is Liverpool away, that week when Arsenal and Manchester United play each other. Do I want to, I'm going to have Emerson sitting on the bench, I'm going to play him at Liverpool. Makes you think, I should look at alternatives here, right? But I've taken the course of it that Wolves at home in 9, Fulham at home in 10, I might end up starting him. And that comes first. And I can always make other changes. How I'd have it bust at the moment for game week 12 with what I've gone with the Free City and obviously Martinelli, obviously I'd currently be looking at 10 players for game week 12. It's also 4 game weeks away. I've got four free transfers used before then. I would not be in a position where I'd be intending to start Emerson at Liverpool. So he's in at the moment on the thinking, yes, I'll start him in 9. I might even start him in 10. 10 is less obvious because I've got Mitrovic at the other end of the pitch. The final defender who's gone in for me at the moment is Mark Guéhi of Crystal Palace, who have no fixture. And they have Chelsea at home next week, Suj. He is 4.4. He's 0.1 less than Joachim Anderson. And I decided, part because of the Perisic James thinking, that the 0.1 was really worth coming down to in case I decide I want to go that way. So Guéhi is in, and Guéhi's part in because of Crystal Palace's brilliant run from game week 10. Leeds at home, Leicester away, Wolves at home, Everton away, Southampton at home, West Ham away, Nottingham Forest away. Ideal substitute here, I think. Palace, we've spoken about a lot. Really good defensive side. They've had a very difficult run of fixtures. I think to have Guéhi sitting as a substitute for the majority of them games is good and worth paying the extra. And if I come to problems and I look like I need to start him, I think that's absolutely fine. So defenders for me, Trippier, Cancelo, Perisic, Emerson, Guéhi. Midfield, De Bruyne, Martinelli, I've obviously said stay. So do Andreas Pereira. In is Jared Bowen. He's very much obviously going in on the fixtures, Suj. For those who've never listened to me before, I am a fixture head. I know he's not in form. I know his stats are shit. I don't care. I'm punting the fixtures. Why are you doing it, James? I'm punting the fixtures. Nothing else to it. I know that fixtures can breed form. It's not to say that they will. And I have a definite escape route if I'm sick of Jared Bowen in a couple of weeks' time, which I'll talk about in a sec. So Bowen's in. Idea would be to judge that up to game week 11 when West Ham go to Southampton. But even some of your fixtures at the end, like you finish with Palace at home, Leicester at home, you've got Bournemouth at home in 13. The only 2 real annoying ones are Liverpool away in 12 and Manchester United away in 14. Unlike with Emerson, I would have no qualms playing Bowen at Liverpool. I wouldn't look at it, oh my God, I'm going to need Bowen at Liverpool. Actually, no, I'm okay with that. Wouldn't have a problem with it. The final midfielder slot is essentially what's been the last decision on my wild card. I said to you yesterday on the podcast we did that I decided and was happy with my team. Wilfried Zaha was in, despite no fixture. Chelsea at home in 9 because of what I already mentioned with Guéhi, these upcoming Palace fixtures. Zaha's now the escape from Bowen or James Maddison I've gone with. Maddison, I was getting annoyed with myself looking at it, going, it just doesn't make sense. Looking at it on the face of it, going, I'll get Maddison this week. Tottenham away is a difficult fixture, obviously. Is he a better choice in my 11 than Pereira? I think yes. James Maddison has the capability, despite the fixture. Tottenham have a corner problem. They have a set-piece problem. James Maddison is an expert from long range, free kicks. So I with him, it's kind of less about the fixture, I think. Do we expect Leicester to go to Tottenham and win tomorrow? No. Am I in a better position, though, looking at it and going, next week, Zaha at home to Chelsea or Maddison at home to Nottingham Forest? And the more I was looking at it, it just became like an obsession. Like, I want to have Zaha. I'm desperate to have Zaha. But I can still have Zaha. I'm just not starting with him now. So Maddison's going in. And he's going in for this brilliant Leicester run, which is a super run, particularly the 4 games, 9-12. Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Palace at home, Leeds at home. It's a brilliant 4-game run. They go to Wolves in 13. Yes, by 14 when they've got Manchester City, Everton, West Ham last 2. I want to escape. But Maddison or Bowen are in with the idea that one of them can become Zaha, whichever one I'm unhappy with. I think it's better I do it that way than I watch Maddison tomorrow and go, shit, I wanted him.
You don't want Zaha this weekend because he's got no game. You don't want him at Chelsea, so fine. You've got 2 weeks to make your mind up.
I can come back to it. And if I don't, with the fixture, if you take that period where Palace fixtures start in game week 10 and they look great, Leicester have got Bournemouth away and West Ham have got Fulham at home. Well, if I'm happy with Bowen and Maddison, I'm not going with Zaha, am I? Unless I rework it, for example, I may look at bringing in someone like Solanke to open up some money, and I go Martinelli to Zaha. It might even be, Serge, that I go De Bruyne to Zaha.
Yep.
Come off and just go, actually, fixtures-wise, Bowen, De Bruyne, Maddison looks great. Leave the money. Go back for big game Kevin 13. I might even look at it that way, possibly. I wouldn't sell De Bruyne in 10, though. They've got Southampton at home as well. But maybe in 11, I could look at that sort of move. Haaland's obviously in up front. Mitrovic is in. Yeah, Fulham's fixtures are great till the World Cup. To be honest, last 2, they've got City away and United at home. My take on that at the moment would be, I can always, by that point, look at someone like Calvert-Lewin has got potentially 2 great fixtures, for example. Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, last 2 for the World Cup. So it's the sort of move you obviously wouldn't consider.
You won't be fit.
Probably not. But even then I look at it and go, right, City away, I can bench him. United at home against Martinez. Like, as a specific, you could, United, difficult fixture, but actually Mitrovic pulling on to Martinez is going to have some fun, isn't he? So I'm quite happy with Mitrovic to run through. I think he's proven himself in these more difficult fixtures to be really reliable. Forget about him. The fixtures are great. Forest, Newcastle, West Ham, Bournemouth, Villa.
It's got a
Leeds,
good run
Everton.
for a while.
Yeah, I've got them best for the next 7.
And he's likely to go up again. I mean, to be fair, he's had price rises the last few weeks. What's his ownership now?
We'll be up to a decent number, I should imagine.
I'm going to have a cheeky look.
Go on, then you do that.
Okay, 29%.
Yeah, I think our bubble of engagement
if he scores
will be higher.
At the weekend, I think it will go up to 40%. There's room for him to go up in value.
He's one, I think, like, people can hate, say, my double Newcastle defence or Bowen or Maddison or Perisic. I struggle to find how people on wildcard at the moment aren't putting Mitrovic in.
Yeah, agreed.
I really struggle with that.
So who's your third striker? I'm really intrigued.
You want to guess it?
Well, flavour of the month. Oh, Isak. I know it because you said you were on triple Newcastle. So that wasn't much of a guessing game in the end, but Isak.
Yeah, Alexander Isak. I think, look, timing's just right.
He's 7.
He's 7.
He hasn't gone up yet.
No, timing's right. Bournemouth at home, then Fulham, then Brentford at home.
Wilson's injured
game week
still.
12's Everton at home. Wilson's injury is now worse than we'd thought.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So, I think...
Is that a surprise? Wilson's injured?
No, unfortunately it's not. But it's probably... you could say having Wilson available would be better for Newcastle, but for Isak specifically... there's not much doubt that he's going to. We don't think St. Maximin's going to be back tomorrow either, which just leads me more and more to think that, we'd expect Newcastle to beat Bournemouth tomorrow, and I'd expect him to be involved. So I think timing's right to the extent, so I've actually got him Buster as vice-captain at the moment for this game week. So
over Mitrovic?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Are they home, Newcastle? They are, aren't they?
I mean, look,
home fixture.
The captaincy's on Erling. I don't suppose it overly matters. I don't particularly want to put the vice on KDB.
I looked at that and I was just like, I'm not putting captain and vice on the same team this weekend.
I think there are certain ones in the future, like say game week 13, where they haven't played in the midweek. Then I'm comfortable to do that sort of thing. But I think with a 12:30 kickoff after a midweek fixture, although I don't have much doubt about KDB starting, I just don't think that's worth it. In any case, I don't suppose it will particularly matter, but that's how I've got it set up at the moment. Yeah, I think the timing's good. He's a super talent. We spoke about him a lot last summer, obviously during the Euros with Sweden. If it doesn't work, my escape route really is Dominic Solanke. Almost certain that's where I'll go with it. Bournemouth have got a really good run of fixtures that starts next week. Brentford at home, Leicester at home, Fulham away, Southampton at home. Is a really nice run of fixtures, actually. And I'm conscious that's one route to obviously open up money for me. Because a lot of people began, but James, how are you going to get back to Trent? James, how are you going to get back to Reece James? Well, I've already explained that there's one Reece James idea. It wouldn't take Isak down to Solanke or Bowen or Maddison down to Zaha to make Cancelo to Trent very easy, or then even becomes Trippier up to James, for example. Also, importantly, I think De Bruyne to Salah. I think everyone's in touching distance for me. And it's one concern I have at the moment, by the way, that I see teams going Haaland and Kane. Right now, you can look at it and go, I don't want Mo. And of course, it only takes a -4 to sort it out. But I still think the right setup is to have a premium midfielder. I still think that's the right setup.
I mean, one of my questions to you is going to be Liverpool, because in all the hokey cokies that you mentioned, I can go here, I can go there, I can go here, I can go there. When you mentioned Mo just now, 30 seconds ago, was the first time you mentioned a Liverpool player as a player to go to or want to get to. And you're surely going to want something there. Despite the form, they're the second best team in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, talking about, say, that moving off De Bruyne, for example, I spoke about maybe going to Son in 11 for Everton at home. Well, if the money's there and it's right, Son at home to Everton, yes, thank you. And then go to Mo Salah for 12 at home to West Ham. When obviously City don't have a fixture and we will have to captain someone not called Erling Haaland. And that's not brilliant, by the way, Liverpool at home to West Ham, but captaincy that week looks particularly difficult, actually, because Tottenham go to Manchester United. Obviously, Arsenal don't play. Chelsea go to Brentford. I mean, the only Chelsea asset I'd consider right now is Reece James. He's the only one. And he's not out of my thinking. Of course he's not. So, I mean, captaincy that way. You've got Fulham at home to Villa. So, Mitrovic. Maybe by the time it comes around, Leicester at home to Leeds, for example. Newcastle at home to Everton. Could it be someone like Isak or Trippier when it comes round? There's not great alternatives looking at that week, and you should be really aware of it. I've seen a lot of people talking about captain Mitrovic against Bournemouth in 11, rather than, say, Haaland at Liverpool or Salah against City. I have no problem captaining Salah or Haaland against those two teams. Liverpool play a high line. Haaland, most teams that Haaland faces would defend the box, right? And he's got to have his moments in around the box. Liverpool are given 40 yards of space in behind. So there's no problem captaining Haaland in that. And how many times I say about what Salah normally does to Cancelo. So actually, I wouldn't have a problem captaining either of those two in 11. The bigger problem for me is 12. Because there aren't great alternatives. And when it comes round, Salah's going to be popular again. So I'm aware of that. Of course, I'm aware that I'm going to want Trent. I may want Luis Diaz back, for example. It might even be that when I come to 12, I'm suddenly sitting there with Bowen going to Diaz, De Bruyne going to Salah, and Cancelo going to Trent. And I might be back on 3 Liverpool at that point. What I think is really key for me is game week 8, 9, 10 look really good sets. There are players that I would like to have who I can't have at the moment. I think Tottenham players, Kane's Son as 1 week punts this week, absolutely great. But looking ahead, I don't particularly want for Arsenal away in 9 and Brighton away in 10. There are people like Zaha I obviously want in 10. I'd actually like to have Dominic Solanke from game week 9, for example. Can't have everyone we want. I think what's important is I look at the next 3 game weeks and said, if I don't touch it, am I okay with that? Now, something will happen. My opinion will change, injury, suspension, something will happen, inevitable. But my intention is to try and get to game week 11 in the build-up to it and only use 1 transfer between now and then. Now, I think that's important. Because when I look at game week 11, I'm suddenly sitting there with treble Newcastle going to Manchester United. how comfortable am I with that? Now, I've got alternatives. I've got Emerson away to Southampton on the bench. I've got Gay away to Leicester. I've got Andreas Pereira at home to Bournemouth. But I'd probably still pick the Newcastle 3 over those guys on the bench. And, of course, then following that comes the game week 12 problem where Gay does become very useful to me. At home to Wolves is his fixture. Andreas Pereira at home to Villa is going to become very useful to me. So manoeuvring 11-12 and still being able to have a core of sort of City, Arsenal, Liverpool back around on game week 13 needs me to have transfers at that point, where that's the core of what I need to do rather than breaking this up next week. So like I've spoken about the Isak to Solanke move, for example. Well, the only way I'm really doing that is if Isak gets injured, for example. But that is genuinely the move I would make if Isak got injured over the weekend, for example. I would go to Solanke next week, store the money up, ready to use it when I need it. So I'm looking at this as the core of my team for 3 weeks, conscious that I then come into problems. But I believe the way I've set it up with people like Gay makes it easier to manage. This is where you're meant to pull it apart, Suj.
Some of the players that you've got in there are popular on wildcard at the moment. It's very, I suppose a lot of our listeners are on Twitter. Right? So we talk about this Twitter bubble. So I'm going off what I've seen on Twitter. Watching the wildcards unfold over the week for me, who has not had any fires to put out, has been just like sitting back and relaxing and seeing how waves of trends have been arriving. Like now I'm seeing a lot of triple Newcastle defensive, like Botman instead of your Gahey, for example. So looking at it, look, I've got the same goalkeepers as you, so I can't, but the same 2 goalkeepers as you. I'm not going to argue with that. And also Cancelo and Perisic, right? Reliable as you like. Gahey, I think, is a good alternative, despite being useless for you for 2 weeks, compared to people that have got Botman at 4.4 and it's opened up Isak. So I don't mind Gahey there at all as well. Are there better 4.4s? Possibly, maybe. Yeah, but it's fine. It's a decent pick. Palace-wise, I'm looking from, what would it be, game week 10 after the Chelsea game for Zaha. And actually, strangely, similarly, what you mentioned, De Bruyne to Zaha might be the one for me, but I want to get to Salah or some way. So it might be Diaz. I'm not sure.
It might be like De Bruyne to Salah and Bowen to Salah, for example. Something like that for me, maybe.
Emerson Palmieri, I put out yesterday that I think wildcarders should fill their boots, but I think I need to add a little bit more context to that. So he's played in a back 4 and he's played in a back 5. When he's played in a back 5, he is very attacking and he gets forward a lot.
Which is what you played in Europe last night.
Yes.
Yep.
When we played in a back 4 and he started, Krezi had a knock, but Krezi came back as centre-back yesterday. If we played a back 4, couldn't guarantee that Krezi doesn't go back to left-back. But since Emerson Palmieri joined the club, he started every single game. He started both the European games, played against Chelsea. Had he signed by the time we played you? I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, he didn't start against us.
One game he started every other game since he joined. I'm pretty sure
he came on against us. I'll check that for you.
Point being that he's not been a squad player. He's been in and around the first team, and he's playing attacking. And I think the biggest thing...
called Cresswell's handball for the penalty that was cancelled out, wasn't it? Yeah, Emerson came on late in that game.
He's 4 million. My point is he's 4 million. So what do you expect at the end of the day? You're not buying him because you're buying a West Ham. You're buying him because he's 4 million. It's worth saying
he started at Villa, played 45 minutes, got took off at half time.
Changed system,
which was before.
That wasn't to bring on Cresswell. That was to bring on Ben Rama and push forward more.
Yeah, but then it was Emerson took off, not Cresswell.
Yeah. Yep. I think Emerson's a good pick, but I think you need to remind yourself that he's your 4 million defender.
Yep, that's fair.
West Ham have been leaky, and we were leaky again yesterday. West Ham are good defensively and will make 1 mistake or 2 mistakes and leak a goal, and it will annoy the shit out of you. But he's 4 million, and we are good defensively, and there will be a couple of games where we'll keep a clean sheet and keep discipline for the whole 90 minutes. So I think that's fine.
I think for me, with what I'm doing with him, and I've looked at this, Gay is the complete opposite in the sense that he's a guaranteed starter. I hate the word nailed, but he really is, isn't he? Him and Anderson will always play. So I've got that as an alternative that I know is good. In the week that I need Emerson most, game week 12, which is the week that I don't want to start him, I don't actually even really care by that point if he's not in the team, because I will be in a position I'd like to think where I'm not starting him anyway, right? So idea would be, as I said, is to start him in game week 9 at home to Wolves and possibly 10 at home to Fulham. But if I'm in a position where, oh shit, it looks like Cresswell started, well, sod me, I'm going to have to start Perisic at Arsenal.
Are you not tempted by Nico Williams? You said he had money in the bank. It's only 0.1 more, isn't he?
No, I'm not really, because I feel like we're coming to the end of it. They've got Brighton away in 12, so it doesn't feel a lot better.
Fulham.
I just think overall your fixtures are better. I feel like
our fixtures are better, but Nico Williams is.
But I also don't want to piss about with this. And if I'm in a position where I get injuries and stuff happens in between, I feel like the upside with Emerson's much better at the moment, in the sense that there's great fixtures coming up for West Ham. And when you get it right, if he's in the team, the clean sheet potential is there as well quite regularly. If he does play at wing back, he's going to be high up as well. That's obviously to be determined. And I think we might get flexibility. I'm convinced that the signing of Paqueta probably means it's more of a back four, in all honesty, Suj, is what I'm thinking, which puts doubt about Emerson. But I'm not that bothered. If it turns out, shit, Cresswell's first choice, then he's just sitting last on my bench. That's not something I want to be pissing about with. Whereas I look at Nico Williams' fixtures, I look at the end, I think, well, if I'm going to need it by that point, Brighton, Liverpool, Arsenal, Brentford, Palace, I'm not overly keen on that. Wolves away in 11. Yeah, those before that are okay. Of course, I could have Williams. But if I went Williams now, so I ain't playing him this week with what I've got. Would you play him ahead of Maddison?
No, not with what you've got, because you've got a full squad there.
So he's actually more useful to have Emerson for what I want going forward as possible alternatives to Perisic, Gahey, subject to game week. Therefore, Williams is not as good a choice for me as Emerson.
Can't argue with Maddison. Okay, tough game this week, but after that, it's a very good run for 5 weeks. And he's obviously gone down from 8 to 7.9. I think he's good value at 7.9. I can't argue with him. He's still performing okay in a shit team. Bowen, you've talked yourself into it. Like basically the whole case you made is the same. I would replicate. There's no form. Still managed to get into the England squad, which is bonkers.
Rightly so, because he'll go to the World Cup.
It might be a case that having that international break next week and going away with the England squad and stuff might be something that really helps him potentially. So yeah, not in form, but he'll play himself into form. He came off the bench yesterday for West Ham, so he had a bit of a run around, but it was a shit last 15, 20 minutes when he came on, so wouldn't read anything into it. I can understand that with Bowen.
If I get him in now and I've got him for Everton away, Wolves at home, and I reflect on it and go,
Zaha comes in.
Really off it. That's it, isn't it? It's done, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think you've got any particular issues there. It's gone with the pack a bit. There's only a couple of players in there that are a little bit different. But then on wildcard, if everyone's making similar decisions, then there's a certain logic in what you're doing there. I like going with Newcastle. I think Newcastle are good and reliable, hence me going for Pope. I just think it's missing, obviously, Liverpool, and that's the difference, right?
I don't want Liverpool now. I ain't playing.
No, exactly.
And I'm not.
Exactly.
My idea, as I said, even if they had the fixture, was to come off of all of them anyway. And that's where I think now it's deviated, where, yes, there's a lot of wildcard teams will look similar to mine. Okay, sure, a few personnel is obviously different. I don't suppose there'd be too many. I've got, say, Bowen and Maddison, for example, at the moment. But yeah, it's going to look quite similar to a lot of the, let's say, Twitter template teams knocking about. I wanted to go against Liverpool. That's not changed. Of course, I'm consciously aware of I don't have Reece James. I don't have Trent. I don't have Mo Salah. Yeah, of course, I'm consciously aware of these things. I might desperately want Andy Robertson at 6.6 in 3 or 4 weeks. Who knows? Maybe Robertson will be out for 2-3 months and just slot Shimikas in there in place of Emerson, for example. Who knows?
He's out for a few weeks, isn't he? After the international break?
He's only 2 after the international break at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I would not be going Shimikas on wildcard. I just one interesting one. We think, and it's not been confirmed yet, we think Ben White might have been left out of the England squad because of injury, potentially. Tomiyasu's 4.2, but I don't know when I'd use him. I'd need that in game week 12 kind of specifically, and obviously Arsenal don't play. So I don't know where I'd start him. Even if I went with Tomiyasu instead of Emerson this week, would I start him over Maddison? I don't think I would.
Flavour of the month right now for wildcarders is Newcastle and West Ham, with the fixture run coming up, and then Leicester, and then Crystal Palace.
And Fulham, you put in there, because
a little bit.
Mitrovic and Pereira are so obvious.
Yeah, and they're cheap. So it's hard to argue against them based on that. It's hard to argue against them. It's why they're so similar. So I haven't seen anything that's particularly crazy in wildcards, and I haven't seen anything particularly crazy in yours, and you've given yourself paths out of all of them. So yeah, I can't disagree. I would probably pick Nico Williams over Emerson if you had the money to go to 4.1 over 4, depending on how often you're going to want to play them. But that's the only thing I would say.
Just a point on Jared Bowen. I was just looking at his start to the season last season. I was just thinking in my head, I don't think he started that well last season.
It was all Christmas, and then post he just was on fire. It's when he started dating Danny Dyer, but that's a story for another podcast.
Just looking his first 6 games, and obviously he's played 6 league games this season. 1 assist in those first 6 last season. Has he got anything this season yet?
No league returns.
He hasn't got anything. Game week 7 he scored. Game week 8 he assisted. Game week 9 blank. Game week 10 goal. Game week 11 2 assists. Well, I'll tell you what, if he can offer me 5 attack returns in the next 5, I'll take that.
Does it show you minutes there?
Yep.
I feel like he kept getting hooked early at the start of last season. No, that was the season before.
Yeah. He was the year before. He was the most subbed player.
Last season, he started getting consistency in the 90s.
To be honest, in his first 10 last year, he came off once after 79, once after 83 in game weeks 3 and 4. Played 90 minutes, all the rest.
Yeah. The challenge to that, though, is we have much better depth up there now than ever before. Ben Rama can come in on the right. Cornet's putting a real challenge in and playing well when he's had minutes. Yeah, there's a lot of depth up there. If he continues to not play well, he will get hooked.
He's streaky. I'm just looking back on that last year, so that period.
Streaky bacon.
Game week 7 to 11, as I said, 5 attacking returns in 5 fixtures. Then there were 3 blanks. Then he had a goal and assist against Chelsea. Couple of blanks. Then he had 3 assists at Watford. Then he had a period. Southampton assist, 3 assists at Watford. Blank Palace, 2 goals Norwich. Goal against Leeds. Blank United. Goal against Watford, goal and assist against Leicester, so that's a real streak there. Then he had a few blanks and an injury, then only 1 goal in the next 4, and then finished the season with 5 attacking returns in the last 4 again. So it is quite streaky around him, and these fixtures might provide a streaky bit. There's nothing, if you want to look at data and shit, you're not going to buy Jared Bowen. Not. I also see a lot of people not buying Jared Bowen, buying Lucas Paqueta at the moment, and that's absolutely fine as an alternative. But that feels right now more like I want a West Ham player.
Yes,
well, I want a West Ham player as well. So I'm going to go with the one that I know's got the big
Lucas
ceiling.
Paqueta is a great player. That's it. There's no evidence on him. He hasn't provided any attacking returns. From what I've seen, including the European game yesterday, he might end up being the assister quite a lot, which is going to frustrate the shit out of people. Like, he'll play the through ball that the fullback will then cross in and the striker will score, that kind of thing. Or he'll play the ball that someone else will then...
So you're saying Paqueta's going, Emerson's in on the left flank and Bowen's in at the back post, is what you're saying to me?
Yeah, Paqueta's... he might end up being the assister a lot, which might frustrate people. Again, we don't have enough evidence to see it. Clearly a talented player, but I don't see any evidence to justify getting Paqueta at the moment. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Question for you is, like, who is the one player that you wanted on wildcard but can't get and regret not having?
It's not, because I've come to the sensible conclusion, I think. But Zaha. Zaha was the 16th man, if you will, was to say, I'll start Andreas this week and Zaha straight in for Chelsea next week. You know I like to do that if I can, go one ahead of the good fixture run. And Chelsea haven't kept a clean sheet since game week 1. Yeah. I'm thinking, if they want to play Azpilicueta at right-sided centre-back again, that's all right for Zaha next week. I'm sure they probably won't do that. And as we know, Graham Potter teams can't beat Crystal Palace. So maybe that will hang over for Chelsea next week as well. So I did want him in. If something happened to Bowen or Maddison over the weekend, that's where I'm going. No doubt, go to Zaha. If something happened to Martinelli, I'd look at probably moving the money about to get Zaha in for Martinelli, for example. So, yeah, Wilfried Zaha's the one. Dominic Solanke's one that's honestly is close, Suj. Really close. I think if I had a wild card next week, I'd have gone Solanke.
Yeah, not for me.
Villa, just briefly, because I've not mentioned Villa at all, and they do have a good run of fixtures. He obviously looked at Leon Bailey quite a lot. Great option at 4.7. But the conclusion I came to was that I'd probably only start him this week against Southampton. And again, I'd probably rather play Bailey than Maddison this week, for example. That's a different one to Pereira. I think Bailey's ceiling could be a bit higher. But I'd only want to reverse that next week if I left the money. And even with like Leeds away, Forest away, Fulham away, I think that's key. They're all away. Obviously, Fulham away in 12 because of the Arsenal City blank. Yeah, sure he'd play. But I don't think I'd be using him, Suj. And I wanted more in the midfield area, knowing that I want De Bruyne, Bowen, Maddison, Martinelli, Zaha, perhaps to Salah, to Luis Diaz. I do want to stay around that 8 million value point. Having the 2 in there at 4.5 which didn't feel right. I could have probably worked it differently to force in Harry Kane there, and going with 3 premiums. But I prefer this setup. I've seen quite a few with Haaland, De Bruyne, Kane. I don't hate it as much as I did in pre-season, but it's not for me, I don't think. I'd rather spread the money.
When I've looked at the wildcard teams, I haven't been worried or scared. Like when some people are playing chips, you feel like I might lose a lot of ground here because 8 or 9 of a lot of people's wildcard teams already naturally landed in my squad. I don't feel like anyone who's on wildcard, no one's captaining someone different like a Bowen or a Maddison. Everyone's still going to be captain Haaland.
A number will go Kane tomorrow, honestly.
Yeah, potentially. That's one that could hurt. But again, Kane's ownership's not going to be crazy. I don't think I'm going to get hurt.
No, but don't play the game in fit. I mean, what I would say is, do I expect Haaland to go off mad at Wolves? No. Wolves have conceded, 4 goals so far this season, Suj? One of the best defensive records in the league. It's what I've said, with the fixtures they've had, they should have one of the best defensive records in the league. They're now about to come into a real dirty period with City, West Ham and Chelsea in the next 3. Those next 2 are away after City at home. And it should have looked a dirtier period as they were obviously meant to play Liverpool last week. So I think Haaland's the right choice for captaincy this week. But if people want to go Harry, he's got a great historical record against Leicester. Leicester are going to give up chances. So yeah. I don't mind it. It's a decent one to take on. Yeah, absolutely.
When you wildcarding, Nico?
I don't even play FPL. He's given up.
Oh, what?
He said he's given up. Yeah. And I said, well, I might give up.
And we thought Manchild was bad. I know, yeah. This guy is worse.
I said, I might give up on you and get a new video editor.
This guy is worse. I thought we'd left our video editing FPL dilemmas behind with a Manchild, but we hadn't.
Right, it's deadline a few hours. Let's end this podcast.
Indeed.
Because it's been too long.
If you are on wildcard, best of luck, including you, James.
Play it your way.
Indeed.
Public service announcement. I have just a couple very briefly. Obviously, deadline stream is today, 5:30 p.m. UK time. If you want to
subscribe on YouTube.
On this wildcard, obviously, if you come on my deadline stream, the team is different. That's because something's happened in the team news that's affected that, and you'll see it represented on that stream later today. But unless there's team news that offsets what I've discussed, this will be my team. I won't be tinkering last minute. I'm not like that. I've made my decision. Boom, done. But yeah, if I hear Bowen's a doubt or something, then I may change. You get what I'm saying. No podcast on Monday.
Indeed.
We're not going to put anything out on Monday. So the main podcast reviewing the game week 8 games will be out on Tuesday.
Lovely jubbly. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you are listening to the podcast. If you like our content and you want more of it, then to head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you can support the show. In addition to extra podcasts, you get a Slack channel where we talk about everything to do with FPL, prize leagues, and a whole
and my Skittles spreadsheet.
Skittles spreadsheet, multicoloured. So yes, indeed. Enjoy the weekend. We have some football back, and stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Good luck. Cue music, please, man.